What is up, everybody? Episode 90. Whew. If you can't get excited this week, I don't know when you're going to get excited. If you're anywhere in New York or in the tri-state area, we got the Giants playing the Jets this week. Not exactly the showdown that folks were expecting when Aaron Rodgers took the reins this year before he went down with injury, but still, the battle of the backups. Little Tyrod Taylor against Zach Wilson. It's going to be an interesting matchup, and that's just on the football front. Obviously, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs and the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce show going on, a lot of fun. But you got the World Series starting up this week. And as I record this, NBA tip-off. I watched a game last night, and now we have a full slate tonight. This is kind of what it's all about. I know that there's a segment of collectors out there who will collect their cards even if there were no games. These are the hobby purists, the ones who like to bark at you from their stories. I do it myself every now and again. The people who will collect wrestling cards will tell you that totally certified cards are actually valuable because they and their friends are hoarding them. It's just one of those fun things. But for the rest of us, the other 80% of fans, and let's call it the people who are coming into the hobby over the next couple of years, the people that Fanatics probably going to be going after, the fans. Your collection is sort of an extension of your fandom, right? And I think that is probably a good thing, right? Somebody who wants to own a card of the player that they cheer for, the player they root for. It's like buying a jersey. People aren't buying, $80 jerseys on Fanatics because they're expecting to be able to flip it next month for more money than they paid for it. No, it's something they want to own to display their fandom, to support their team. And I can see a world where people are buying the rookie card of the guy on their team, not just Wembanyama, but whoever the rookie is on your team, and this is it. This is how I'm supporting. It's almost like, if you want to make a ridiculous comparison, the fans of the Green Bay Packers who go out there and buy stock in the team, right? They go out and they buy stock in the Green Bay Packers, even though there's no ownership of it. It's like a fake thing. But you want to say, hey, I'm a shareholder in the Green Bay Packers. I own a share. I own 5 shares. I gave my kid a share of the Packers for his birthday. It's an interesting thing, right? And I think that there is room for the hobby to grow in that regard, not just in, hey, let's collect and let's have some fun and do this other stuff. It's hey, I'm a fan. And the NBA season, 82 games. Let's go. Let's go and buy some cards of the guy we're going to cheer on this season. I'm going to get into a little NBA preview. Should be some fun stuff. And we'll have some fun. And Ian, who do you think wins the NBA championship this year? Might as well throw it out there. Who's going to win?
Bucks.
The Bucks. How come?
Damian Lillard.
And Lillard to Giannis, and it's just going to be tough to guard them.
And Big Eyes Portis.
Yeah, all right. Crazy Eyes Portis. All right, so, there you have it, folks. I don't really need to even do an episode on it. NBA preview, that's always fun. Got to talk for a second before we do that about baseball. You got to love it, man. It's one of those things that it's a nice reminder, right, that, anything can happen and usually does, right? You can have all the payroll in the world. Texas spent some money this year, and they've made it. But even they are not a 100-win team. The Orioles won 100 games. Yankees spent a lot of money. They didn't even make the playoffs, right? But here you are. You have, Texas and the Arizona Diamondbacks. A team that, the Dodgers should have squashed. A team that the Phillies were supposed to squash. And yet neither of them did. And you have this team to root for, a true sort of underdog. And I think it's really going to be fun to watch, right? It's just one of those things that, sports gives you, right? It's one of those things that, you get from sports that you don't get anywhere else. What's up, buddy?
I'm calling it the World Series of the two teams that didn't make it into the playoffs 6 years ago.
All right. Well, listen, you're righter than you realize, because the teams that they just beat were the teams that were in the World Series last year, right? So you kind of get tired of seeing the same teams. I personally get very tired of seeing the Astros do anything. So anytime that they lose, I'm happy. I will note that for those of you collectors out there, if you can dump your Kyle Tucker cards, a guy who I've been high on, a guy who I think is very good and has a good baseball future, if you could dump your Kyle Tucker cards for anywhere near value on him, I would, because he just showed that in the bright, shining lights of the playoffs, he will shrink. He is Devin Booker. He is a ghost in crunch time. He is someone who you cannot count on when the lights are brightest. Now, that could change. A-Rod was pretty terrible in the playoffs until he wasn't. Same kind of stuff. But, yeah, I watched a lot of those games. And Kyle Tucker was somebody I was high on. He's got a sweet swing. He puts up some really good numbers. Was a dark horse candidate for MVP. Yes, I said that right. For MVP this year. He did not show off in the playoffs. On the other hand, Yordan Alvarez is a beast. I mean, in the offseason now, I may be looking to try to add a couple of cards of his. That's a guy who, if he stays healthy, which is a big if, can put up some monstrous numbers from a career perspective. And that's baseball. I know nobody cares about baseball. And even less people care about hockey. And even less people care about pickleball. But we're not going to get into that. So, funny tweet I saw today. Guys can go look at it. Brian Gray from Leaf. I should have saved this and just put it in my in my news. I love Brian Gray. Tried to have him on as a guest a bunch of times. He put a picture of Barry Sanders up, and basically was like, hey, Barry Sanders retired at the top of his game. At the top, he was the pinnacle of performance. He was the beacon that I never really understood, until now, because I retired at the peak also. And you're like, what? What? You retired at the peak of what? Physical performance like me? I mean, hey now. How many chins do I have over here? Looks like a little extra one. So, basketball. Let's do it this way. Let's have some fun. I'm going to tell you who I would look at for sort of awards. I took a little notes for myself because maybe that's something you can use for investment purposes. I think the prohibitive rookie of the year is Victor Wembanyama. I think he's going to go out there and have some crazy stats. It's difficult to pick anybody else. I'm sure there'll be some other good rookies, but I think rookie of the year, that's probably the easiest one. I think for your MVP, I think it's going to come down to Giannis and the Joker again. And if the Joker wins again, that's some crazy stuff.
Joel.
Huh?
Joel.
Yeah, Joel Embiid. He did. He won Joel Embiid, but now they're talking about trading him.
The Mickey Mouse.
But Jokic won the year before that, so he'd be a multi-winner, and he came very close to winning last year. Interesting stuff. Defensive Player of the Year, I gotta tell you.
Georgia.
You think it's?
I think it's Georgia again.
Evan Mobley. That's my pick. Evan Mobley. That's my pick. Third year.
He's gonna get injured.
He's not gonna get injured. Sixth man of the year. You're gonna love this one, buddy. It was tough. I had it narrowed down.
Taurean Prince.
He loves Taurean Prince on the Lakers. I was going to give a little nod to Emmanuel quickly and really say the Knicks are really good. It's Bobby Portis.
11 seed.
What do you think, Bobby Portis? Sixth man of the year? Yeah, see, I knew he'd like that. He's big on the Bucks this year. Most improved player. I'm going to give you 4 names. You tell me which one you think. You ready? Alp Sengun. I've had some cold sanguines in my time. Alperen Sengun, Jonathan Kuminga on an improved Warriors team. Tyrese Maxey takes a step forward because who the heck knows who he's going to be playing with. And Patrick Williams of the Bulls. Those are my 4. Who do you think?
Maxey.
I think Maxey could really turn it on this year. They told Harden today he came reporting ready to travel with the team. They told him they didn't want him traveling with the team, and there's talk of them trading Embiid. Who knows if that actually happens? But I mean, it's going to be Maxey's team very, very soon.
James Harden is still in Houston.
Interesting. I think Adrian Griffin is going to be your coach of the year. You don't know who that is?
No, I know.
He's the coach of the team that you think is going to win the championship. So there you go.
Oh, you're doing coach of the year now?
Yeah, that's just all the awards, right? And for your
More.
playoff teams, man, I guess maybe just the best way of doing this, right? Who do I think is going to be? I'm going like straight chalk in the East. I think there are clear-cut 2 top teams. I think it's the Bucks and the Celtics.
Yeah,
easily. I kind of can't stand that. I'm intrigued by the Kristaps Porzingis pickup by the Celtics. He gives them a tall guy in the middle. I know they've had Robert Williams. I know they've had, a bunch of shot blockers in the middle, but Porzingis is somebody who can extend Giannis out a little, like make Giannis play defense. And he's a scoring big man if he stays healthy who can compete. And you kind of have to, right? You kind of have to have that when you're against Denver with the Joker, and if it's the Grizzlies who come back, maybe less distraction this year. Then it's Triple J you're favoriting in. Even the Suns, people forget KD, and he's a big dude. But I mean, again, chalk. Most likely the Suns and the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals. Although I got my eye out on the Grizzlies. I just do. I mean, I think the Grizzlies can be pretty awesome. I think chalk. If you really want to just go nuts, because I watched the game last night, I think the Lakers are an improved team, and Denver they look too good at passing. I don't know how many more years you're going to get of the Joker playing at this level, but with him playing and firing on all cylinders, if you get anything out of Gordon, which they did yesterday, you get anything out of Murray and Michael Porter Jr., and then you add on those role players like KCP that they added in. I think you could be looking at another Nuggets championship with the Joker as the Finals MVP. I know that is silly. Here we are, one game in, but he just plays the game at a real high level. Doesn't mean I'm buying his stuff, because I think you're basically seeing this this flash, this peak, and then I think we're going to be done. I think people are going to catch up to him. I think he's going to slow down. And I think he doesn't even really have the desire. I've talked about this a bunch of times, to really play, for that long. He's making a ton of money. He doesn't really love it here. He just wants to go home, spend his money, and do his stuff. So that's the deal. A lot of fun stuff to talk about this season. What I'm pulling for and what I could see happen. Dark horse out in the West, not making the finals, but potentially competing for sort of like definitely a home playoff round. And maybe, winning 2 rounds and, fighting for a shot in the West Conference Finals. I like the Pelicans. I really want to see Zion stay healthy for an entire year.
I do too.
We have his cards. Yes, that's true. We have 2 of his cards. Everybody knows about the green Pulsar R25. But, I mean, the league is just better when its stars are playing, and when we're seeing that next level of star. I'd like to see Anthony Edwards really take that step forward also. I'm curious to see how the super teams work out. Notice what I've mentioned in the West, right? What are the teams I talked about? I talked about the Nuggets. I talked about the Suns super team with Bradley Beal being added. I talked about the Grizzlies and John Morant, hopefully not distracted by off-court nonsense, and he could take a step forward. I talked about the Pelicans. The Lakers look good. They added some nice pieces out there. The Lakers. I haven't talked about the Warriors. The Steph Curry team, the dynasty, they're returning. The Draymond's a little injured to start the season up, but they're returning the Splash Brothers. Clay, a year removed from, his injury again. You expect to see more from him. Steph still in his prime. Draymond. And who did they add? Is this the season where Chris Paul actually gets a title? No one's really talking about that.
Even if he gets a ring, I'm still calling him CP3 no rings.
CP3 no rings, C3PO, C3PO no rings, like a Star Wars thing. It was funny. Nobody really talking about those guys, which I think is probably the way they would like it. Imagine a team that has Steph Curry, CP3, Klay Thompson, basically NBA 75 players up and down, Draymond Green being a dark horse. Showing up and being an underdog and surprising people. How can that team sneak up on you? It might actually happen. So, in the East, and I got to tell you something. I'm going to throw it out there, right? So you can play this again. I think Trae Young puts up some gaudy offensive numbers this year. I think he competes for a scoring title. There you go. I just throw it out there. I don't know if everyone's going to care. I don't know if that's going to, there's going to be shill bidding and nobody likes Trae and he doesn't play much in the way of defense. And, what's the most you can expect from the Hawks? 4 or 5 seed, something like that. You're not expecting him to compete for a championship or anything there. I just think individual numbers wise, he's going to put up some scoring numbers this year. And also in the East, I expect Tatum to take us. This is a huge year for Tatum, I think, right? He's that guy who you've been, now for 5-6 years expecting he's going to be the guy. He's going to take over. And, despite that, I think last year was finally the year he pulled away from that 1A, 1B, Jaylen Brown and him. He's the guy. But they haven't won, right? And I'm not saying he needs to win it all this year, right? Because that Bucks team got better. But you'd like to see him really take a step up, be the, like a true MVP, like top 3, him, Giannis, Joker, and then everybody else is kind of like, a step lower. And that leaves one other thing from a hobby perspective, Luka. We haven't even talked about him. I don't think the Dallas team is going to be that good. I didn't like what I saw last year out of Kyrie and Luka. I don't know that they play well together. Kyrie has kind of imploded almost every situation that we've seen him go into. And if I were holding Luka cards right now, and there are people who have a lot of Luka cards and a lot of money in Luka cards, if I were holding Luka cards, I'd be a little nervous. I'd be a little nervous holding his stuff because he's another guy who could put up some stats, but 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, here we are 2023. I mean, we have 6 years, a year behind Tatum. I know he's young, but how long are we going to say he's so young? He's got so many things ahead of him. The numbers don't matter. It's got to convert to winning at some point to justify the prices for his cards. So there's a little NBA preview. I'm excited to go watch the games. I got my league pass to even watch the games, bro. We're going to have to see if LeBron makes his team better. I'm pretty sure plus minus with him on there yesterday on the court, he was plus and, they were negative with him out. I know in the fourth quarter, I heard a stat while I was watching it that they were +7 with him on and -7 with him off, or -14 with him off. -14, so it's like overall -7. They were losing by 7. They went on to lose the game. I don't know whether or not that gap closed. They were resting him a lot yesterday. His first game, they don't rush him back. Remains to be seen what he can do, if anything, with that team. Can he work with that team and make them better so that when he's out, they are not, just crumbling, which is what it looked like was happening yesterday. But some intriguing pieces added there. I mean, Christian Wood on the inside to help out with some of the dirty work there with Davis. Got Cam Reddish, the always dangerous Cam Reddish. From a hobby perspective, everybody keep doing your thing. I hope that, it's earnings season on stocks, a lot of great earnings season, a lot of companies reporting good earnings, Bitcoin going up. I am hopeful that we, continue to receive good economic news. Inflation comes down a little bit, rates come down a little bit, and, everybody's doing well, and, everybody's prepared for an economic downturn, and hopefully it doesn't come, or at least not as bad as what, people thought. And there's, still money for people to spend on discretionary stuff like cards. But if there isn't, as we head into the end of the year, it's always a good time to do one of those audits that we've talked about a bunch of times. Make those piles, make one good pile, make a pile, the ones you can't live without, the ones you can, and then go through your collection. I'm not going to use the word consolidate because I'm not talking about consolidating. If that is what you want to do after selling, go right ahead. But, there's always a good time to take stock in your collection. Just be careful. Don't get emotional. Don't get crazy. Don't say, okay, NBA started. I'm going to sell all of my baseball cards right now and try to buy NBA, because you're going to get the least free baseball cards now, unless you got Corbin Carroll. And you're going to be paying a premium for NBA because that's what everybody's looking at right now because the season's just starting. I mean, you might want to sell your basketball and buy your baseball. Zig when everybody else is zagging. Speaking of auction houses, I see a lot of, let's do an auction recap, or let's do a live while the auction is ending and talk about, hockey cards and this and that. I don't really see the auction houses themselves coming out and doing stuff. I see Robert Edwards every now and again, and I see Heritage doing it. Obviously, I mentioned both of those guys in my news this week. But where's Ken? I'll just ask, where's Mr. Golden? I asked that because I got a pretty expensive card ending this week in their October premiere. And I know it falls, to the bottom of page 1 or maybe page 2, but right now that card's looking like it's going to sell for 50% of what I paid for. I'm going to take a bath on it. And, I'd love to see auction houses do kind of like, hey, here's lot number 1, lot number 2. What does it take? 30 seconds? Like do a live 5 minutes, 10 minutes, especially somebody like, Ken or the Golden Team. I know they're filming their Netflix show and all that stuff. I think they just wrapped on season 2. That'll be out, shortly, I'm sure, on Netflix. But don't forget about us, guys who are selling our cards with you. I know I'm not the only one. And there is my wrap. You guys enjoy. Go have some fun, watch some basketball games. The kid says the Bucks are winning, and I have a hard time disagreeing with him. Enjoy, guys. Talk to you soon.